pointed demands that will help build the schools our students deserve. Why wouldn't the district and the state want to support a contract that advocates for these crucial and responsible measures? How can they continue to say that they are youth-centered while opposing a contract that centers youth and families? The PTU recognizes we have work to do in building and strengthening our own business practices, supporting cultivating leaders of color within our union, and rebuilding trust with the Providence community at large. Over the past year, we have taken concrete action steps to do better. Aside from our social contract justice demands, we also formed 2 teacher-led committees focused on racial justice and community outreach and organizing to improve our practices. And while that work is ongoing and in process, we deserve safe, just working conditions and a fair contract immediately. Our schools have been underfunded and understaffed for decades due to racist and classist policies that replicate injustice. Blaming teachers in our contract is scapegoating and it is irresponsible. The superintendent and the commissioner are doing an excellent job of exacerbating and deepening the myth that students and teachers' rights are inherently opposed, and they choose to use their time and resources to drive a wedge between families and educators rather than addressing the true issues. It is in the district and state's leadership's best interest to divide and conquer stakeholders while putting blame on teachers so that they can continue to evade accountability for broken promises. Let's continue to focus our energy on the people in power and demand that they use that power to bring about true change by fully funding our schools and supporting the social justice contract demands put forth by our union, which are supported by research, by students, and by families. Now is the time for educators, parents, students, and community members to come together in one united movement and in true collaboration to defend public education, demand accountability, and fight for the schools our students and families deserve. Thank you.
We have Ana Maria Urrutia from the Bailey Elementary School. Yeah, hold it while you speak. Put it as close as you can.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Oh, this may work even better. Do you want to try this out? Thank you, brother.
Hello everyone.
All right.
All right. Hi. It is really nice to see all these beautiful faces in the blue. You know, great for everybody to be here. Okay, my name is Ana Maria Urrutia, and I am a 3rd grade teacher at Bailey Elementary. This year I'm in VLA. And I've been with the district for 21 years. Yes, probably 21 years in the same building. Yeah. Before that, I spent 14 years teaching in Brooklyn, New York. And I absolutely love it here in Providence. I love teaching my students. I love the families, I love the students, I love the diversity, I love the passion that our students have. I love that we have so many talented students that don't know that they're talented until we bring it out in them. And I love that we do that. Okay? But we have some difficulties. We do this job because we love our families, we love our children, in spite of everything that we have to go through. In spite of all the obstacles. We do it without the resources that we need. We're out there buying our own supplies, our own furniture, buying everything that we need because we love our students, because we go above and beyond. Always. We don't get the support that we need from administration, but we do it anyway. We asked for PD. We'll talk about that later. Okay, but to be absolutely clear, we need to make sure that our teaching body looks more like our students. It is essential, okay? We have to make sure that we are teaching the history and lived experience of our students and families. It's about them, okay? We need to make sure that we support the transformation of our school culture into not colorblind, but truly anti-racist spaces. We can no longer be complicit. We can no longer just stand by and watch what we see happening. We can no longer just let things go. We have to speak up and stand up for our children and our families. No more keeping silent. You see something, you say something, you do something. Okay. We will fight both the contract and outside of it to achieve this. So please hold us accountable to this, because we will do it. Let's talk about how we actually get to greater educator diversity. We need to truly build the Grow Your Own pipeline for our students, for our teacher assistants, for our families, for our communities. We need to invest in supporting the educators of colors that we have, the few that we have. And most importantly, we have to keep folks from leaving. We can't afford to lose even one educator. We've already lost a few educators of color for absolutely no reason. Okay, I'm not going to go further. Yes, teacher assistants. Okay, in 2015, an Al Shanker Institute State of Diversity study examined 9 large cities from Los Angeles to Cleveland, New Orleans to Boston, New York, San Francisco, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. And it showed a crisis in every city that lost black and brown educators in droves, just lost them. Only LA and San Francisco approached parity reflecting black students, but both still are usually underrepresented, including our Latinx educators. We don't have enough. How are we pushing for MLL students, but we're not pushing for the educators that look like them, that could support them? And now the takeover. Well, sadly, cities that saw takeovers and mass characterization in, like, New Orleans, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. Cleveland saw the biggest declines in representation. For example, there was a 24% decline in black educators in New Orleans and over 27% in D.C. What's going to happen to us here in Providence? What's going to happen here? Okay. Interestingly, the Al Shanker Institute study found that union seniority was not a factor as to why cities failed to move the needle on teacher diversity. Do you hear that, Commissioner and Superintendent? Do they hear that? It is not our union. It is not us. Yeah, because they're always blaming the union. It is not the union. We don't hire, right? We do not hire. Okay, so why is that? Cities, including Providence, are not hiring at a replacement rate to make a difference. So when we lose teachers, we're not going back and we're not hiring them, okay? So therefore, we've lost so many teachers of color, and in almost every city, the rate of educators of color leaving within 5 years was greater than that of white educators. Yes. In Providence, we have an added issue. We receive half as many applicants for our position than most large districts, according to a Brown Annenberg report this year. We must recognize that we're behind by the state's own doing. Teaching license reciprocity with Massachusetts didn't start till 2019. When I read, that blows my mind. I came from New York 21 years ago. Reciprocity, and Massachusetts bordering state, no reciprocity? Why did it take so long? We know that we've cut teacher peer mentors. We went from 16 to 0. These positions need to be restored. When an educator starts to teach, we know that your good teaching, your good practices don't come from the college, don't come from the classes. I don't care if you're an A+ student. It comes from when you will walk into a building and you are supported by educated teachers with experience. I've been teaching 35 years, and if it wasn't for Sharon Wilson, I would not be here today. Sharon Wilson, when I first started teaching in New York, she was my staff developer. She walked me through teaching, because whatever I learned from her on how to be a teacher. She gave me that great advice. Remember the first advice she told me? She said, your first week, don't pick your daughter up from daycare. Go home and take a nap. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm in my 20s. I'm full of energy. Oh my God, you know that first week when you taught, oh yeah, that was very, very valuable for me. I wouldn't have learned that in school. Yeah. Oh yeah. So we know this district and commissioner, they've openly attacked educated voices at schools. From serving on decision-making bodies to choosing better PD options. Right. How did you like your PD this year? Oh yeah. Many of my colleagues told me it's the worst they've ever had. I agree. This is the exact opposite of what retention policies look like. And as so many studies show, a lack of professional autonomy and voice is one of the top reasons educators choose to leave. If we don't have a voice, why are we there? We know what to do. They need to listen to us. We know students, especially students of color, are most saddled with student debt. Meanwhile, teaching has become less and less attractive as a career, both as a financial proposition and for one's own mental health. They did do one thing. We're glad that the district has introduced affinity groups that allow a supportive environment for educators of color. If you haven't been to one, I highly recommend it. They are good. Our union has also endeavored to create a similar space. We need more of these spaces, and we'll need to dive deeper into them about why educators leave Providence. We need to figure that out. Why are they leaving? I think most of us know why. I think we know why, but they need to know why. Okay, so, problem, what are some solutions? Our statewide union, the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers, have worked closely with Rick in the Educators Rising program at Mount Pleasant and JSEC. We must invest more in these grow your own programs. We have to. We're calling on RIDE and the state legislature to partner with more colleagues and programs in creating intentional, well-supported pipelines from educators of color in Providence and across New England. We're calling on RIDE and state legislature to create and support more teacher assistants and community-to-teacher programs. We have amazing teacher assistants. Why are we not pushing them into the classroom as educators? When I was in New York, they had a program for paraprofessionals. My paraprofessional became a teacher in the same building. She was amazing. We have them, we know that. Okay. So we're calling for RIDE to settle a fair contract that makes sure educated voices are heard. Hear us. That teacher peer support staffing is restored. How are we not supporting our teachers? And then you wonder why we have a shortage. that teaching in Providence is competitive and attractive. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give it up for Ana. Woo! Ana Maria. All right, next we have Nikki Bond from Mount Pleasant, social worker at Mount Pleasant. Talk about social emotional needs of our students.
So I want to talk about a couple things. I do want to talk about social emotional learning. I also want to talk about community partnerships. Before I came to this district, I was a project manager for a local health equity zone. Have you guys heard of health equity zone? HES. Okay? Good. Turn it up. The HES used the school as the financial backbone agency. And what that did is it made sure that the schools had food pantries, vision care, dental care, mental health care, community gardens. But more than that, the community partnerships started really providing for the whole child, not just part of the child, not just the academic part of the child, but the whole child. And by the way, having those partnerships did not mean eliminating critical school staff like our school nurses. We need to recruit and retain more of these professionals, especially in our schools that have high turnovers and high vacancies. We need to recruit more bilingual school support professionals, but we need a contract that is democratic and equitable for these folks to want to join our team. So, I want to tell you a little something about what the National Association of Social Workers says for school social workers. They say that we should have one school social worker per 250 students. If we have high special needs, it should be 1 per 50. Guess what? There's almost 1,200 students at Mount Pleasant. How many social workers are there? One. Just me. But it's not just that, okay? Because I'm up for a challenge. The fact is what do I do there? What does my day look like when I'm there? Am I running around providing social emotional learning for all those kids, for 1,200 kids? No. Because I have about 40 kids who have counseling in their IEPs. That means I am mandated to service these kids weekly. Do the math. If it's a half hour per kid, that's 20 hours per week. That doesn't include Medicaid billing. That doesn't include writing IEP goals, reaching out to families. What about the other 1,100 kids in my school? Or how about the fact that 4 times in the past 4 weeks, in the past few weeks, 4 times I've had to ride on an ambulance with a student because they wanted to die. Not just die, but they knew how they were going to die, what they were going to do to die, and where and when they were going to do it. So that means we're on our way to the hospital. That means that we're collaborating with community partnerships, okay? That's good. It's bad, but it's good that we have these resources. But what happens when I get back to school? Now I'm out of compliance. I'm out of compliance because what about those 40 kids I'm supposed to service? Sorry, I didn't get to you. I was in the hospital all day long. That's the reality of it. So another thing I want to mention about these kids, okay? Out of the 4 that I rode on that ambulance with, 2 of them are LGBT. That's 50% of the kids that I rode to the hospital with identify as LGBT. You know what our school really needs? It needs a GSA, a Gender Sexuality Alliance. Do I have time or resources to provide that? What do I need? We need more social workers. We need to demand more social workers. We have to. 1 social worker to 1,200 kids is egregious. It's not okay. But again, we need to be able to have contracts where people want to come and work for us, where they feel supported. So I want to leave RIDE with one question. Because 3 weeks ago, we did lose a student by suicide. And I would like to ask each and every one of them, how many more of our students have to die before we get more social workers into our schools, before we get more help, before we get more community partnerships? How many? Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you. Like Lindsay said, there are consequences to these decisions of not investing in our schools, and sometimes they are as dire, unfortunately, as Nikki has mentioned. Our next speaker is a substitute teacher in Providence, Enrique Sanchez. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Enrique Sanchez. I am a first-year substitute teacher in the Providence public school system. I applied into the school system in the middle of a pandemic after my good friend Corey Jones convinced me to apply. This experience has been one heck of a roller coaster for sure. I was first placed at Alvarez High School, where I came in as a level 1 and level 2 Spanish teacher. There, I was able to build relationships with not just my students, but with different teachers, school faculty, and different administrators there. My friend Corey and I had the incredible opportunity to meet one of the most dedicated and smartest teachers in the school district, Maya Chavez. Maya has not only been a great support and colleague, but a great friend. We were there for each other when we were calling for a switch to remote learning from in-person learning. To this very day, I still haven't figured out why we were in school learning prior to the second wave of COVID-19. Since September, I have been at 3 different high schools. I started out at Alvarez from September until January. I requested to be transferred due to personal reasons and also taking into consideration my future in the Providence public school system. I transferred to Mount Pleasant in January and jumped right into a permanent special education math position, covering for a great teacher who was out due to health and related conditions. I felt honored to be working alongside great teachers and school faculty at Mount Pleasant. Shout out to the Mount Pleasant school faculty. There, too, I was able to connect and build relationships with a lot of teachers and students. I also had the honor to have an amazing teacher assistant helping alongside. Shout out to Miss Boulevard. Throughout my experience, I have been able to connect and build relationships with my students. Being a bilingual Latino Latinx teacher gave me an advantage in being able to connect with most of my students at every school I've been at. As we know, the majority of the student body are ESL, MLO students, and a lot of these students are from countries like Guatemala, the Dominican Republic, Honduras, Haiti, and other countries throughout the globe. When these students, who are mostly black and brown students, look at me, they see themselves in my shoes. We have conversations around many topics: food, music, hobbies, sports, culture, and language. Not only have they learned from me, but I myself have learned a lot from my students. I've learned to be more patient and understanding of my students, of everything they experience, not only at school, but at home, on the streets. It's been a beautiful journey thus far. I am a very political, community engaged, and vocal person. During my time at Mount Pleasant, I noticed that there was both a school nurse and a health clinic inside the school. I did research and quickly came to notice that this clinic, smart clinics, were privately funded and privately connected institutions on public school grounds. No, one can view this however they want, but due to my knowledge and understanding about policy and social economics, there's never a positive outcome for projects like these converging with public institutions. I learned that our school nurse, Tammy, was removed and transferred to another school because she didn't comply with what the school district wanted her to do, which meant her going against her contract. I appreciated the solidarity and support that our teachers at Mount Pleasant organized for our nurses when they were removed. A lot of students and school faculty were hurt and were upset that our school nurses were transferred elsewhere. And all for what? To please these smart clinics who were trying to complete their work for their corporate bosses. A month passed, and I was still on top of these smart clinics trying to gather information and knowledge on what their main purpose for implementing these clinics inside our schools meant. I asked many questions. Why Mount Pleasant High School? Why not install a smart clinic in high schools in towns like Barrington, Riverside, and North Smithfield? Why install a smart clinic inside a high school with a majority of the student population who identify as people of color? Why do this project in their communities of the most vulnerable? According to my analysis and complete understanding of the whole situation, these are the first steps of trying to privatize education in our schools, one step at a time. This is what we call in the political world a neoliberal project. These smart clinics are for profit. Do not let them tell you otherwise. They're making profit off our students. In March, I was called in for a meeting with my principal at Mount Pleasant High School, Dr. Conradi. And right after that, a disciplinary meeting at PPSD where I was to discuss and talk about my issues with the smart clinics and why I was very engaged and outspoken on Twitter about these projects. Towards the end of the meeting, I was told that I was going to be removed and transferred to another school on orders by the chief of staff, probably Peters. I requested to stay at Mount Pleasant and keep working there. I was denied that request. Now remember, I was covering for a teacher who was out until next year, and I was already building up a base with great students, great support from teachers around me. They took all of it from me and placed me somewhere else because I refused to stay silent and refused to turn the other way, while injustices were being committed to other teachers and school staff. The issues that I brought up were legitimate in my opinion and deserve to be addressed detail by detail. Thanks to my involvement outside of work, I was showered with incredible support from the political organizations that I organized with, including Prov DSA, Reclaim, the BLM RI PAC, Working Families Party, and many others who support our public school system. I am very grateful and humbled for all the amazing support and solidarity from the Providence and Rhode Island community. Throughout my experience as a first-year educator, I haven't helped but notice the treatment of our teachers that they receive from our administrators and our network. Teachers' voices are suppressed all the time. They always have been, and especially now, ever since this new network took control of the school district. The most upsetting part of all of this has been the lack of empathy and compassion for the teachers and students who wake up every day to go to school and work since the beginning of this pandemic. I understand the argument for more diversity and transparent within our teachers' body, union membership and leadership. I myself would like to see more young people of color apply to be teachers and get involved in the school districts. See teachers of color push for leadership positions within the union, and that is something we're going to push for and fight for. But we cannot force this with an aggressive approach by trying to fire everyone and trying to replace teachers who have been educators for decades. AIG and Peters both support chartering up the public school system. That's why they're really trying to break the union. Teachers who have poured their heart and soul into education in Providence. Teachers who have families at home. Teachers who have bills and expenses. Teachers who can't see themselves doing anything else but teaching our young people in this community. The current state of affairs that we're in goes back to the 70s and 80s, when public education ceased from being a top priority by our government officials, both locally and nationally. Since the birth of neoliberalism and the initiation of trying to privatize every public institution in the country, and thanks to the years of divestment of funds, resources, and support for our teachers and students at public institutions throughout the country. This is not only a racist institutional policy, but also an economic disparity policy issue as well. Students, teachers, parents, and families at PPSD have been taken advantage by for far too long. I hope to see consensus and cooperation from both sides of the aisle, because at the end of the day, it's our students who are going to either benefit or suffer from the outcomes of these negotiations. It's our young people at PSU who are going to lead the way, the Providence Student Union. It's our young leaders and community organizers who are going to fight until we win. It's our people who care about the public education who are going to be victorious at the end of the day. I will continue to fight every day until we see positive outcomes. But this will take a group effort, team effort, and cooperation from everyone who cares about the future of our public schools here in Providence. Thank you all.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Enrique. Appreciate it. All right, and just to close us off, I want to call Mary Beth Calabro, our PTU president, to close us off. Appreciate everybody being here.
All right, well, Enrique's a tough act to follow. Just saying. When I was his age, I was more concerned about, we were going after school to party than social justice issues and helping our brothers and sisters. So I want to thank every single one of you for being here today. This is extremely important for all of us. Each one of us who have been affronted by this leadership team is part of this organization. They tried to say that the teachers weren't the union, and 1,511 of you said differently. We are the union. We are on the ground with our students every single day. We have solutions on the table that need to be acknowledged. We will not sit idly by while they sell off our school district to smart clinics and charter schools. This is a takeover, not a giveaway. $120 million will leave our school district in the next 5 years if this moratorium does not go through and Achievement First and Excel and the other boutique charters are allowed to build or expand. That is less supplies, less materials, less curricula, and less teachers than we currently have. I don't know about you, but it's April, and I still have yet to get a teacher's edition because they couldn't purchase them for teachers of students with disabilities. I don't know about you, but our dual language teachers are still teaching in person and online at the same time. That doesn't tell me that this leadership team cares about kids. It cares about its bottom line. Because if you see the bloat at 797 and how many, what do we have, like 16 superintendents now? I don't even know, I lost track. Superintendent, deputy superintendent, assistant superintendent to the deputy superintendent, sister's uncle. Stop. But we can't get certified teachers to go into the classrooms. 65 vacancies right this minute, and they just started to post for them 2 weeks ago when I put it on Twitter. 65 vacancies. You don't care about kids and leave them without a certified educator. 36 kids on a VLA class. They haven't had phys ed, art, music, library all year. Don't tell me you care about kids when our kids are not getting what everybody else is getting across the state. If you cared about kids, you would have spent the entire summer ensuring that every one of our students had access to technology and access to Wi-Fi. If they cared about kids, they would not have sold high school students to Edgenuity, an online platform that is ABC Mouse on steroids, where there are not enough courses to fulfill college requirements. Don't tell us you care about kids when our first and second year teachers who are part of an induction program no longer have an induction program because you didn't want the union to run it. And please, for the love of all that is holy, do not tell me that you think that we should have more rigorous professional development and you put me on a webinar with a magazine company. Because if you all remember correctly, our teachers, the ones that they all consolidated, our coaches, our instructional specialists, the most highly professional developed people in the state, were the ones who provided rigorous, actionable professional development for the past 5 years. And now they're being replaced with non-union people who we're not even sure are appropriately certified.
That's right. That's true.
So I'm going to close on this note. We know we care about our kids. We know what we have to do. We have solutions on the table. We expect, no, we demand that they get consideration that they deserve. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you Pawtucket. Thank you North Providence. Thank you Warwick. Thank you Frank Flynn. Thank you Jim Parisi. Thank you to all the kiddos who got dragged here and the doggos that got dragged here. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you all very much. Right to ride, right to your state senators. When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? Have a great night, folks. Folks, before you go, Rep Morales is here. One of our great reps in the city. One of our great reps, Dave Morales, is here. He's like a champion for Providence Public Schools. We thank him greatly. So I'm just going to give him the mic.
Thank you so much. Brothers, sisters, and non-binary